I think that the main takeaway here is just service over the bottom
Mhm.
line, like service
Yeah.
leading the way in business and seeking community.
All right. Welcome, everyone. So today I have Tatum Brandt with us and give a very, very unique perspective on the fitness industry as a whole. She's not like a coach like I've had on here before, which is good. It's really good because I don't mean that like in a negative way at all, but that's like all I've had like other coaches and fitness professionals on here. So I'm super stoked. I've been following you for a while. You're also a member here at CrossFit Serve.
Sure.
So yes, welcome Tatum. Super excited. If you just kind of give a little background, kind of like how you kind of got into the space you did and kind of what you do.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It's always exciting to kind of enter a space that has been traditionally, you've had so many expert coaches. So it is intimidating, but I'm excited to have kind of more unique conversations. My background, I've been working in specifically brand and marketing within the fitness industry since about 2016, 2017. And if you've been following fitness since 2016, 2017, there's been some radical shifts within the industry. So I have a brand design studio where we create brands for, fitness and wellness founders. And it's been interesting to kind of watch that evolve, especially over 2020 when so many gyms had to close their doors. All of a sudden, we're scrambling to throw people online like, hey, how do we take your group classes or, Pilates classes and provide a similar experience and try to replicate that community online. And so that was a huge challenge. And then, of course, during that time, we saw a huge software boom with technology hitting the scene. And then fitness, people started actually prioritizing their fitness and started putting a lot more of their discretionary income into their health and wellness. And we've seen the industry just start to explode in
Yep.
some good ways and some maybe not so great ways. And
Right.
what I love to hang out and talk about.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, COVID was a unique time. So that was right before I had gotten into the fitness industry full time. I was a paramedic on the ambulance first, right
Really?
when COVID kicked off. Yeah.
Did you have the same burnout that every medical professional experienced?
Yeah, big time. So it was, I knew being a paramedic, at least a paramedic on the ambulance, was probably never going to be a long-term thing. And I was still always like more fitness focused and like training like my partners and we like work out at the station and all the things, right? But when COVID hit, that was kind of like that I did basically lasted like another 18 months. And that was sort of like the final nail in the coffin. And I was like, this is it. And I just like jumped full both feet in, started my own business, right? And went into fitness. But yeah, COVID was an interesting time. I knew several gym owners during that time. And I think the silver lining to COVID, as weird as that sounds, is it made people so much more aware of health and wellness. And particularly like my generation, like millennial, elder millennial, and down. I was actually just talking to one of my coaches a couple days ago, and he was all like, "Oh yeah, discretionary funds for wellness, right?" He's like basically an infinite symbol next to it, right? He's like, because you can always have your health, right? So yes, it's a little bit of a tangent, sorry, but it's very interesting to see how the industry has shifted in the last 5 years or so.
It's been wild to watch. And, I do like that wellness. I've been saying, fitness and wellness have kind of become status symbols now
Yeah.
amongst the younger generations. And, you can look at that disparagingly, but of all things to be status symbols, it is nice to see a shift away from, going out and partying has been replaced with this kind of run club. Like there's a blend of, okay, we've
Yes.
got the Diplo's run clubs, we've got the like strongman events where we're also hanging out. And it's been a cool shift to kind of see.
Yeah, and that's, so I have a 16-year-old daughter, and her at 16, like way more focused on self-care, in a good way, right? It's like, hey, I'm gonna do my yoga, a little bit more interested in like what it means to eat healthy than like
Yeah.
and when I was 16, I was like sucking down cigarettes and pounding beers, right? Like not super, super
Even
smart
with
and
if you were involved in athletics in high school, a lot of my friends who played like football in high school or basketball, like what you were taught was you eat a ton of pasta and you're eating Doritos and Mountain Dew. And like now, all of a sudden, there's so much knowledge out there about, oh no, we're going to eat, 200 grams of protein a day to like, here's how we recover. Like, it's nice that the younger generation has some kind of concept of that instead of just burning ourselves into the ground and then getting TBIs while we're doing it.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a whole nother thing, right?
That's a whole other thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I've actually had several high school age one-on-one clients, right? And so I'm coaching them through like, hey, this is kind of like your protein goal. We're doing strength training, like all these things, and it's like that just when I was in high school, that wasn't a thing, right? So,
And to come into, your adulthood having those habits and like that foundation already laid, my goodness, that would have saved me years of work trying to establish like healthy habits and routines.
yep. And then me, I hit 40 this year, and it's like just talking to my buddy, and I was like, man, if we'd have done this stuff when we were 20 years old instead of just doing what we were doing. Awesome. Yeah. So kind of with that, I know we were right before we started recording, I screwed up. Democratization, right, of
Yes.
fitness. That really, honestly, you were kind of the first person I've heard sort of talk about that a little bit. So can you kind of like define, explain what that is for everyone and kind of like we kind of go from there, if that makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, the democratization of fitness has been like, that's exactly what we were talking about with even like kids in high school having access to so much information about nutrition and programming and recovery. And I think we've seen it in the post pandemic kind of software and tech boom that's been inside of wellness. All of a sudden, we have access to Whoop and to Aura, and we have as much data about ourselves as, I would classify myself as a gin pop person that used
Hmm.
to was only available to elite athletes. And
Yes.
now we also have tools at our disposal for free or cheap, like for programming. We've got like AI programming tools are now a thing that, I'm sure not all of them are fantastic, but
Right.
they do exist. Anything that kind of gets us on some semblance of a program to begin to start moving. And, now we have access to all of these tools at home that can like lead our own workouts. So it's been interesting to watch that shift, with the Pelotons and the Tonals and all of these brands, the ladder apps, the brands that have hit the space that now we can do everything by ourselves and we have access to all of this information. But then there's this interesting blend of we're starting to realize doing everything on our own is so isolating. And a huge
Hmm.
component of wellness is community. And so
Yeah.
balancing, okay, we want this hyper personalization and we can do everything ourselves and we have our own knowledge. There's a couple of things there. One, we don't have access to the community that comes with showing up to a gym and participating in a WOD or a group workout. And two, sometimes we don't know how to interpret the information and the data that is being presented to us. And the tools, although Whoop has done a ton of work, sometimes it'll tell you your recovery score is so low and you shouldn't go work out when maybe you just had a stressful day at the office and you do need to move your body. So there is a little bit of push and pull where there still needs to be some semblance of professional oversight and then also community that I think needs to come into play. And I'm kind of interested in how you're balancing that at your gym.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that the education clients now, even compared to when I first kind of got into this, both unofficially and then, just through my own fitness journey before, are so much more hungry for knowledge, like but why, right? And so a
Yeah.
lot of times during like my one-on-one sessions, I'll be like, I have to kind of like check because I can nerd out. I was an exercise science major, right? I
Yeah.
can get real into weeds for it, and some people don't care, but like a lot more people now want to know the physiology behind something or hey, why you set the rep schemes up this in this, phase of training, you've done it kind of like why are we doing it this way, right? Which is good because sure, I'm not telling them anything they couldn't find on Google or Chat GPT, but I think there is still that hunger, one for that interpersonal interaction. And then like they want to hear from a real person, right? Like someone who's a perceived expert. I am or not, I don't know, of like the kind of the why. And I think that's been a shift I've seen, and it's been refreshing, I guess, maybe to have that. And like it's kind of cool that like normal Gen Pop people or whatever are more interested in their taking more interest in their health, right? And then like I'm like kind of like the worst business person when it comes to fitness too, because I'll tell people all the time like I want you to not need me. I want you to want me, but not
Right.
need me, right? So like I'm like huge on spending time on educating people and my clients with that. So that's been kind of how I've approached it. And I think I told you before we started recording something I've always been told, and I still tell like my other coaches and trainers, like people hire trainers, they don't hire programs, right? Because like you said, they have the ability to find it on their own. They chat GPT or whatever. They're not that great, but like it'll get you moving, right? You'll probably get some results early on, but yeah, having that professional input, I think, has been really important for people. So,
That's super interesting. The component of people asking more questions and
mhm.
being more curious about their health in response to the data that they're receiving and the things they're seeing online. I also think, as far as trainers, you will always be needed in the way that, like, the more questions we have and the more information overwhelm we're getting, it's nice to turn
Yeah.
to somebody that we see walking the walk personally and like doing this in their day-to-day lives and saying, okay, what do you actually, how do you interpret all of this data that we're receiving online,
And I think
which is
it
key.
and like trainers too can like, well, at least a good one should be able to like kind of give you like synthesize it down into like be able to talk in like sort of layperson terms, but then also like, and this is how it applies to you in your specific situation, right?
Right.
Whatever that is. Like I work a lot with tactical athletes, so your fire, EMS, military, stuff like that. Hey, this thing that we're doing and that we're focusing on directly translates to this other thing that you're doing in your job or whatever it is. And that's same with other people. It doesn't just have to be tactical athletes.
Yeah. Where you work the night shift, here's how this why we're actually doing things and structuring programming this way, you know,
Yeah.
because of your sleep schedule or lack thereof.
And with that though too, with that increase in like people wanting to know why, it has, I think, forced you if you're going to do this professionally, it is forced you to sort of level up your coaching and your like ability because long gone, I think, are the days, or at least I hope, of just being a rep counter. You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? Like if you're not, what value are you providing really? And that's why like, so Zach and I, my business partner, are big on like paying for continuing ed for our trainers and coaches and stuff like that too, right? Because like, yeah, people are smart. They have a ton of information. And so they're going to ask questions and they're going to be intelligent, pointed questions, right? Like you should be able to answer that or at least get them the answer pretty quickly, right? So
The same has happened within the world of branding and the creative industry as a whole. All of a sudden, you can go and create your own creative on Canva or work with ChatGPT to try to create a brand strategy. And so it just up levels the playing field of now you've got to come in with, you have to understand the nuances of why these tactics work and what's going to resonate within culture. And the same goes for fitness. There's ups and downside, positives and downsides to that, of course.
yeah.
But it is nice to see the industry, like the bar being set a little bit higher and people's expectations being set a bit higher.
Yeah. And yeah, talking about like your industry with marketing and branding, like, as a someone that has to, as a business owner, small business owner, gym owner, you have to wear all kind of hats, right?
Yes.
Talk about, yeah, someone like you is always going to be needed because I just don't have the time to keep up with it. Like by the time I am like, oh, this is like a marketing thing that's working or whatever. Honestly, by the time I'm hearing about it, it's
It's
probably
that
already been worn out and it's like,
100%.
shit. So
And even the tried and true, like, okay, how do we position ourselves on Google with SEO and what does that
yeah,
mean? There's so much information that your time may not be best spent in becoming an expert in that thing and translating it to your business. And I think the exact same thing goes for fitness. We have access to so much information about the nuances of training and how to be a quote hybrid athlete and do all the
yeah,
things that we want to do, but we don't have the time. There's not enough time in the day to, get essentially as much knowledge as you have having a background in exercise phys.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's just crazy. You've heard third space, or like you've said fourth space, right? Which is like that intentional community. I've seen you put out a ton of content about that lately. Peloton, I think, was the most recent one I saw about that, where it's like they're trying to like Peloton had some issues anyway, but like then they're trying to like do more in-person community type events, even the way I think they rebuilt their main studio. I think I saw
Yes.
something, right? Like
Which
that's
is
been,
It's really interesting to watch Peloton, which was a brand that exploded over the pandemic, and is just prime example of like the democratization of fitness. Like all of a sudden we can have, I mean, if you pay $2,000, you can have this bike in your home, and then you pay $89 a month on top of it, and you can get the
yeah, my wife has one, so yeah.
I think everyone I know has had one at some point that is now
Yeah.
collecting dust in their basements. But and I mean, they're struggling in today's landscape to say, okay, how do we reposition ourselves and answer this need for community? Because people aren't riding their bike in their garage at home alone anymore as often.
Right.
And so they've recently launched like a series of in-person like run clubs, which does feel about 2 years too late. Like we're kind of
Mhm.
over the bubble, even though they're still very much popular for a company that size. It feels a little lacking. But then even their brick and mortar like HQ, where they film a bunch of their workouts, they're starting to turn into, okay, how can we bring community in here in New York City. So this is now a community space and we have coffee and you can come in and hang out. And although I don't know that that's enough for Peloton. I think for
Yeah.
a bunch of small businesses, those tactics are still, very needed and very valid. And so I'm interested to kind of hear about how like you're trying to cultivate community like beyond just showing up for the WOD.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been a big thing. So we bought in January. It's now June at the time of this recording. And so we just recently have come up with it's CrossFit, right? So there's always that kind of like automatic baked in sort of community aspect a little bit, right? But that isn't really enough anymore, it seems, right? It's like there's a million CrossFit gyms, right? And at this point, everyone's kind of done it or heard of it at least. So we're starting to work with other gyms, right? And like collaborate with non-CrossFit gyms. And so we're starting something. So it's kind of like a sneak peek, but by the time this goes live, but we're calling it Friday with Friends. And so like this first one that we're going to do, we're actually collaborating with a strongman gym to open up Friday nights free, like completely open to the community, whether you're a member or not. We'll have like a special event that everyone can like it'll be like set up in a way that one, maybe two people go at a time. So everyone can like rally around them, like cheer them on. That someone
Yes.
else like, all right, let me try this thing, right? And especially CrossFit members, right? Strongman event. It's a little different, pretty novel if you're like only a CrossFitter or whatever. Um, and so, ways to like test your fitness, build community, have a food truck upstairs, right? Like to have that and then just keeping it open for another hour or so afterwards to like hang out, mingle, drink. We're in the heart of downtown. So we're really lucky in that regard. And it's like, all
Yeah.
right, let's go get a beer somewhere, right? Like we're 2 blocks away from the bar. So let's
Yes.
let's go do that. So we're gonna start doing that like every Friday with different gyms. Maybe sometimes we won't always be able to collaborate. But that's kind of like where we're taking it with the aspect of community,
So smart.
to open it up to outside of our own internal community. Is that, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
'Cause at the end of the day, we want to like we get into the fitness business because you want to help people, you want to spread fitness, right? It's changed your life somehow, and you want to share that with other people. And being a CrossFit gym with the name CrossFit in it is inherently a barrier, I think.
So many people it can be. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like people I still hear it all the time. CrossFit, oh, like not for me. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that
But
way, right?
it's so scalable. That's
Yeah.
the that is the inherent barrier within CrossFit. I think both for the good and for the bad is because you have the CrossFit Games and these elite CrossFitters that have
Hmm.
attracted a lot of attention to the sport and the methodology of that mode of fitness, which is incredible. But then people also form associations with it that aren't necessarily true because if you've ever been to a CrossFit class, I can scale this down to
Right.
my skill level. And actually, the coach is going to encourage me to do that. And
Right. They should
everyone
be.
within the community is both in competition with themselves and each other, and then deeply encouraging of everyone at the gym. And it's if you go to a good CrossFit gym, it's a great environment to be
Yeah.
in. But I think that's such a smart idea to collaborate with other gyms and people in the area,
Hmm.
because I think that's how there's a Trevor Noah has a podcast, and he's a comedian, but he
Yeah.
has this phrase that he says that community is found in the friction. And I think that's so true. When we have access to so many things that we can do at home, it's easy to get this workout done at home. It's easier to never talk to anyone, especially if you're a little socially anxious.
Yeah.
But the friction is what creates that community of like getting up and actually going to the gym and actually doing the workout that you might not want to do because there's double unders on, the
Yeah. Yeah.
workout today, and you don't want to do it. But those are the things that create those bonds and create community. And I think finding ways as a gym owner to open spaces to kind of lower the friction so that people do come in and say, okay, now I've kind of gotten a taste of this. So I want to keep coming back because I've, gotten over my fear of whatever this thing is. I don't have to be in the best shape of my life to start CrossFit. In fact, I probably should start it when I'm not in shape.
Right. Yeah. And I think the other aspect, the other idea of that too is I was talking to somebody and they were like, well, what about like, are you like competing with each other? And it's like, we're not, right? Because that community, like every gym, especially like in boutique fitness, right? That's what CrossFit is, does have their own kind of niche community. Like everyone, it's all right. You're either going to fit in with this or you're going to fit in with the other one. And if you fit in better with that, like, dope. Like come hang out with us on Friday night. Go be with them, be healthy, and then come another Friday night if you want to do these special things or whatever. But just I just want like to expose more people to fitness in general. And it's been really well received by the gym owners I have talked to. Everyone seems pretty excited about it. So I think it'll be really, really
I
cool.
will.
The other thing that
I
we got
Oh, go ahead.
going to, sorry, is it's called a summer sweat, right? So there's like a huge thing. Each studio in downtown Raleigh has a specific month throughout the summer that we're going to this. There's a local apartment complex. And so we like collaborated with them and we're just doing an open free community workout right there in their like courtyard or whatever. And we're just going to set
Oh,
up and
that's
it's like,
cool.
hey, this is who we are. This is how we do it. So like, I think this month is like metabolic, they're doing it there, and then like we're next month in July, right? And so it's like
Nice.
again, like there's all kind of different ways for you to be fit. You just need to find your people, right? And the thing that you like to do and will stick with, and like that's what's going to get you fit and keep you consistent. And so we're also doing other like just free community events. So
I love that. And I hope that more of the fitness industry leans into that collaboration for community, because I think it's such a strong angle and way to get people in the door, because that is what I love about working with other fitness industry pros, is that there's a deeper passion for impact and wanting to get people
yeah,
healthy and into fitness beyond just the bottom line of your
right.
gym or of your brand, which is really exciting and like fun to participate in. There's a conference coming up in, like, I think a few weeks. When this podcast comes out, it may have already happened, run by a company called Athletech that just publishes like fitness industry news.
Yeah.
And so there's a panel that I'll be moderating that is essentially talking about the power of brand partnerships and collaboration within the industry over
Mm,
competition. And so it's got like, I think the brand partnerships lead from CrossFit and from 45 and Zumba, and then a pickleball like company,
nice.
and saying like, hey, we actually all work better when we work together, because people get healthier and they actually love working out in various modes of fitness. And essentially what you said, everyone finds their community and fits in that.
Yep.
And when we work together, we have a bigger impact and can attract more people so they can find their fit, which is a great perspective to have within the industry.
The other thing I've noticed too, having been in the industry for a while, both as a consumer and then now like, business owner or whatever, fitness is very, of cyclical is the right word, but even just using me as an example, right? I started with powerlifting and it's like, all right, cool. Got like that was fun. And then I started doing like went like more of the aesthetics, like aesthetic sports bodybuilding, stuff like that. Went back to powerlifting, then I went to CrossFit. And so that's the other thing too, is like just the more exposure you can get for your thing or someone else's thing. It's like, okay, maybe they've been doing strongman for 8 years. And I'm like, "Yeah, what else? Let me try this thing for a little bit." And like you see that happen a lot of like we get people all the time. Oh yeah, I did CrossFit like 5 years ago. I'm coming back to it. Like, why not? I went and
Yep.
did this thing for a while. And so I think like kind of to your point, we're stronger together, right? On because people are going to do whatever they're going to do anyway. So just put it out there for them. And I think if you have that service first mentality rather than yeah, like if you're out there trying to make money and like doing like that, that's super transparent. People are going to see through that. But if you're just like, hey, here's the value that we offer, this is free, these things, whatever. If you want to keep doing it, cool, come on, and we'll hook you up or whatever. And like that actually helps. You want to talk about bottom line? That's going to help your bottom line as a business owner, leading with service first, than it is trying to like lead with profits or whatever. So
100%. I think that's a good line of thinking just across the board, but
yeah,
particularly now from a like branding and marketing perspective, like consumers' trust in brands is at an all-time low right now. Like I think we're coming out of an era like over the pandemic when brands made a lot of promises of like, hey, we're here to be your friend and like we care about these things too. And classically, like we're going to put rainbows in our logo for Pride Month. And then, of course, this year we see none of these companies are doing it anymore. Like people are now wise to the fact that brands are trying to be your friend to get into your wallet. And so I think, especially younger generations who grew up with advertising and marketing, like constantly are a lot sharper at clocking in authenticity. And so I think, especially as a marketing strategy in general, leading with authenticity, people will see it and it will work. And if you're trying to work an angle, often it's going to fail unless it's rooted in something deeper because we can see through it. So I think it's
yep,
even more to the point of, leaning into partnerships and, community over competition to a certain extent. Like I think that's better as a business owner, like you're, building a business that you can be proud of. But I think in today's day and age, it's also better for your bottom line because people will see that and you experience it when you walk in the door. We were talking offline about how gym ownership you classified now as it's in the hospitality industry.
yeah. Yep. Yeah, that was a huge like mental reframe I had coming from being just a trainer, right? Like it makes sense though. It's like it's so like as soon as I heard that, I was like, duh. Like, yeah, of course, right? But yeah, this isn't where, you think, okay, gyms, that's like the fitness industry. And it's like, I don't know, all about the programming, sweating or whatever. And it's like as a gym owner, like I'm 100% in the hospitality, right? Like I want to, someone comes in for the very first time, never been into my gym before, right? Like I want to greet them at the door, walk them down, talk to them, right? Give them the tour, give them the free bottle of water, show them the whole thing, like make sure they're comfortable, like all those things. And then like I want to continue that through the client journey, like even after they become a member. It's like we don't just forget about you, right? It's a bunch of touch points, making sure that they have everything that they need from a fitness perspective, right? Like to make sure that they do hit their goals. And long gone, I think, are the days, especially coming like with talking about specifically CrossFit, of like the dingy warehouse with like no AC, just like jailhouse looking thing, right? You need to have a certain aesthetic, I think, too. People have come to kind of expect that. Because yeah, you're boutique fitness and they're paying you 200 or more dollars a month, right? So like give them the value that they're paying for, right? Like I think that's where a lot of gym owners and like especially old school like CrossFitters and stuff, or CrossFit gym owners in particular, drop the ball and they either adjusted or they failed, right? Because it's not cheap, right? There's a lot of things people can spend their money on. And economically, the times are kind of rough for a lot of people. So like this should be their escape, and for an hour or whatever a day, and like do everything you can to like make that an escape for them, right? Yeah, do we want them to hit their goals? Absolutely. And we want to help them get there. But at the same time, like the idea of like just being able to de-stress, unwind, I have my one-on-one clients, they just bitch about work sometimes, which I get, like, unload. I'm very much like at doing even group classes one-on-one. It's sometimes I feel like people's therapists,
Yes, I would imagine.
which I get it. Like, and I have no problem with that. Yes, we're very much in the hospitality industry. And if you don't have that mindset, I think as going forward in this industry as like a gym owner and stuff, I think you're probably in for a rude awakening and probably a rough time.
I would agree. People are also viewing their health and wellness a lot more holistically. And so we're not
Yeah.
keeping our like gym and recovery and nutrition. It's not as siloed as it used to be. And
Mhm.
people are kind of looking when they come to a place like their gym to answer all of those things in some way. And so not
Yep.
every single CrossFit gym is necessarily going to say, and now we have like a cold plunge and a sauna. And like this isn't necessarily a lifetime fitness.
Right.
But I think that there are ways that you can incorporate that in your gym and acknowledge that and say, okay, now we're having a workshop. The gym that I used to go to, the CrossFit gym back in Savannah, Georgia, they would
Mhm.
host workshops for like, and we've got a nutritionist coming in, like it's free for you guys. Come on in, like ask all of your questions because we know that you're asking about this. And I
Yep.
think it's important as, we start to have an understanding of wellness more broadly and recovery more broadly to answer to that in some capacity.
Yeah, and I that's a big when we came in here, that's a big thing that Zach and I wanted to do as well is, we still got some work to do, but we have the CrossFit Serve and then we have like the Serve Wellness, right? Which is like our vertical offering, personal training. We have our a Crystal, our nutritionist. We have our two physical therapists, Romine and Crystal. Still looking for that massage therapist. That's been a battle, right? But meal prep services, stuff like that. Cause we're never gonna be like probably not gonna ever be a lifetime fitness level or whatever, but we can answer and check a lot of the boxes for you within like your fitness and wellness journey, right?
Well,
So
from a branding perspective, I always come in at not everyone wants the fitness country club that is Lifetime Fitness. Not everyone wants the Equinox. There is something about the garage gym with no AC and chalk on the ground about
mhm,
CrossFit that I personally love and a lot of other people personally love. But there's also a way to retain that thing that people love so much about your business and say, okay, but how do I also introduce other things that people need?
yeah,
With I think we spoke offline about answering like how do you listen to your members and deliver things that they need while still running a successful business? Because they
yeah,
can all say like, "Hey, we want a nutrition course," and then you put all this work into putting it on, and then no one shows up. Have
yeah.
you kind of found a balance with listening and that sort of thing?
We're it's like always a work in progress, I feel like, right? But I think by having different components like through the Serve Wellness vertical offering that we have, right, we can look at I'm big into data. And so I can see like, okay, we've had 6 signups with our nutritionist since she's come back from medical leave, right, this month or something like that, right? So like clearly this is a thing. Like let's lean into this leading standpoint. All right, let's start maybe putting like the idea of leading with service first. Like let's put some valuable posts about nutrition, right? And like collaborate with her a little bit more and stuff like that. Cause clearly this is a thing, right? A big thing has been a lot of people been asked about like the massage therapy, and that's like sort of things out of my control. That's definitely something that we want to get in here because we've
Yeah,
had previously, but like I've been putting a ton of effort into that, right? And so trying to get somebody in. And so, yeah, that's, I guess the balance I found is kind of like try not to be so reactive. I'm very much an action person, right? And Zach has to rein me in sometimes because I'm, oh yeah, like
I
that
relate
sounds
to that.
cool. Let's go this and let's do this. But it's like, all right, let's just look at the data. Let's see what people are asking, what they're doing, where they're spending their money, right? Okay, cool. Now let's lean into that and and then provide them that value and provide them that service as best as we can, right? And so that's kind of how we're doing it, but it's like, yeah, it's this ever-changing animal, right? And after being in the industry for several years too, it depends on the time of year. Like fitness is so weird that way
It
we're gonna
definitely.
because I promise you the nutrition thing as we go into the holiday season, that's gonna shift to something else, right? Because people want to like they're kind of like fuck it with the like I'm gonna eat my cookies and like Halloween candy and whatever, right? Because I did nutrition coaching for several years and it was like fall hit and it's like everyone bails. They're like, I'll get back on it in
Yep.
January. So you just have to like, yeah,
Which is really interesting to answer to in figuring out, okay, what is the new thing? And then also what ways can we frame nutrition that's going to be like
yeah,
appealing to people this time of the year?
hmm
And I've had some interesting, like during low periods, some of my clients who run like a training app, it's all
hmm
digital programming. They have a low period in the summer where people are going on vacation. They don't care as much. They trained for the summer and then they drop it during the
yeah,
summer. And so they're seeing, okay, how can we lean into understanding the people that we serve and giving them something that's interesting to them to keep them beyond just the bottom line, but keep them being healthy and fit and prioritizing their nutrition. And so
Right.
one of my clients, she's running this campaign over the summer called the Fitness to Say Yes, like Say Yes Summer. And so, like, hey, if you want to go on this hike with your kids, if you want to sign up for this 5K, like you have the fitness to do that because you've been training for it. And like, let's put something on the calendar. There's
Yeah.
a trend that has been happening now, or this industry that's been exploding, is wellness tourism and like participatory sports tourism. So people are now traveling for races or for high rocks events or like fitness competitions and saying like,
Hmm.
let's go on vacation and I'm able to like participate in this thing and like have some kind of challenge for myself that I can
Yeah.
achieve over here. And so it's interesting to kind of lean into some of those verticals during low periods within fitness and say, okay, how can we position this thing that in a way that's interesting to people that keeps them engaged in fitness as we hit the holidays or as we hit the summer?
Yeah, and that was actually the when I was just a trainer at the last gym I was working out of, that was we started an in-house comp during November. I think we did it like end of November, early December, right? So it was for that exact reason. We didn't really have the lull so much, and we have it here either during summer, but like it's in this area in particular, both as a personal trainer, gym owner, everything, the fall's rough, right? It's like, man, sucks being a gym owner, sucks being a personal trainer. But that helped a lot because it was like, all right, November's kind of like right in the middle. That end of November, early December is when we did it. And so like everyone's like it kept them pushing through September, October, basically, because a lot of times after Labor Day it just was right. But that kept it a little bit, kind of padded that because like people were motivated to do this thing. Then it's like, all right, they did it. Couple weeks, and then it's the new year, and it's like, or well, you know how that goes in the fitness industry, right? And
Oh,
so
yeah.
it was
We're
really
launching websites
strategically,
like crazy at the end of
yeah,
December to try to get it
yeah,
up January 1. And that's where too, like as people are so used to digital platforms and gamification, figuring out how to kind of gamify things, but in real life to keep people
yeah.
engaged, I think is an interesting strategy that those challenges can like lend themselves towards, both for, the good of your business, the health of your business, but ultimately for the health of your people.
Yeah, yeah. And then the another thing I think we're going to talk about for here in particular, again, this is our first year, so it'll be interesting to see what we need to do, but is like some kind of lifestyle. I like to call like a lifestyle challenge, right? So it's
Yeah.
how can you keep the healthy life? How can you be healthy or whatever in a sustainable way, right? It doesn't always have to be calorie deficits, killing yourself 4 or 5 times a day in the gym, right? Like, yeah, you're gonna travel through the holidays. You're gonna have good like food that you maybe normally wouldn't, stuff like that. And so through the lifestyle challenge, the way I've run them in the past is like this is a challenge in the sense like to stay healthy, but like I'm gonna teach you through it, right? That education piece of like how to do this sustainably, like where you don't have to track your food, right? And all this. And like, yeah, it's so like I'm gonna eat some like pretty like tasty things like myself personally. This is the way to approach it and stuff like that. And so we're playing with that idea for here as well to just hopefully give people the tools they need um, to approach the holidays with a little different mindset, I think,
That's so smart.
to be healthy and sustainable, but not understand you don't have to be like dieting all the time or whatever, right? You know, there's this kind of like perception I think of most people that it's like being healthy means being restrictive, and it really isn't that at all.
Yes. Or if you're in, maybe you're more seasoned, I call it what is somebody's like fitness or wellness IQ? Like how
Hmm.
long have they been within the industry or the space? And some people even view it as, okay, we're bulking, we're dieting, we're at maintenance. So you might even be that advanced, but hey,
Yeah,
sometimes like just live your life, like you don't
yeah,
always have to be pursuing the next thing. And I think that's also where really deeply understanding the type of people who are showing up at your gym
hmm,
is so critical because CrossFit lends itself to a certain type, like multiple demographics, but often you get these like, and I throw myself in this camp, like a very all or nothing type of personality.
yeah. We're
We're
all
here
mentally ill.
challenge. We're here for the like to put ourselves through the ringer and we're always trying to be better, which is great. But what happens then is, hey, if we can't do 120%, we're going to do zero. And I think
Yeah,
that's what a lot of gym owners really struggle with, or people in fitness in general, is people have all of this motivation. and then they drop as soon as they can't
Yeah.
do it perfectly. So I think figuring out some kind of a lifestyle challenge of you don't have to do it perfectly. Actually,
Right.
one of my this personal trainer that I work with has been labeling it as like workout snacks or like microdosing workouts. Like, hey,
Oh,
even
yeah.
20 minutes, like, time under tension is better than zero. So, like,
Yes.
if you can't do an hour, 20 minutes, there's science behind that actually like helping you progress. Like you can still progress that way.
Hmm.
And so trying to shift, break some mindsets and like just show up and do what
Yeah.
you can, I think is going to be key, but also for retention so that people
Yeah.
don't, be, oh, I haven't showed up in a month and I'm kind of ashamed. So I'm just going to cancel my membership.
Right, right. Yeah. The whole it's trigger sessions is what I've always heard it as. Is
Ooh, I
like
like that.
it's just like I don't know to me, I don't actually know if this is true, but like the idea that it's like it triggers that stimulus or whatever, growth or whatever it is. So even if it's only like 10 or 15 push-ups and 10 or 15 squats and it's like, all right, cool. And then you got it in really quick on your way to the water cooler at your office or whatever, go back to your desk and you do that like 3, 4 times a day, right? Like by the end of it, you've moved quite a bit and you've gotten a decent amount of work, right? So
And
there's all
it's at
kind of ways
least
to
better
hack it.
than, if you can't get 10,000 steps, which I think as we all kind of see as like that's a mythical number anyway, then
Right. Yeah.
like, get some, get
Right.
out of your desk and, anything is better than zero. But that
Right.
can be difficult to frame, when you're working directly with people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I get it. Like, and it's hard with, kind of, and I'm sure you see this from a marketing standpoint too, like the wellness influencers and everyone selling like quick fixes, like that's something I wish would die as the industry evolves, but it's like if it's
I gotta
more
say, I hate to
omnipresent
break
than
it to
ever.
you.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
only going to get worse. The good thing, this is the downside of wellness and fitness booming. It's amazing that all of us are jumping in. The bad thing is the influencers who are, or even just people who are just not qualified or out for a
Yeah.
quick buck, are only going to multiply. And so I think that puts the pressure back on the professionals like yourself to say, how do I position myself as a professional? And I think this is where, it's easy within the fitness industry and a lot of the people that I work with in fitness, you can get so jaded by looking at social media and saying it's not fair that this person who, okay, they just have a six pack and they're selling horrible clickbait strategies and they're
Yeah.
getting all the attention. I think it's an important reframe to say, how can I get better at marketing myself so that I can reach these people before these other people can?
Yeah.
And I think that's also why I'm passionate about working within branding and marketing within the fitness and wellness industry is like, hey, there's a lot of people who have expert knowledge who just need to get their voice out there.
Yeah.
So how can I hold myself accountable to get better at marketing myself in fitness so that people can get the science backed info, the evidence based information and not,
Yeah. And
the detox pills,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah. All kind of stuff. And it's frustrating because a lot of times that's not sexy, right?
yeah.
Like the real thing isn't super sexy. It's not like it's boring, because it's a lot of times it's just about showing up, being consistent and putting in the work and like no one wants to hear that shit, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that's what like the whole 6 week challenge thing a few years ago that like popped off huge in the industry, right? And it's like, and it didn't really, from a science perspective, didn't really work, but it was a great way to funnel a ton of people into your gym for like 6 to 8 weeks, and yeah, but
And I think it's important to be cognizant of the things that work and the like clickbait strategies that work and say, okay, how can I use this to get funnel people into stuff that actually works?
yeah,
That's an exercise that when I work with brands, like we look at user journey and like how do they become aware of your business? And so an example I always give is like a perinatal strength coach. And so she
hmm,
found a lot of her people found her after they went through the cycle of, okay, postpartum, we want to lose weight and that's just the main thrust of our goals. And so we're on
hmm,
Pinterest, we're on TikTok, we're following unsustainable plans. Then we start searching for sustainable weight loss. Then we find strength training. And now we're looking for, well, how do I find a strength coach so I know how to train both after, before and during my pregnancy? And so
yeah,
this is, the small group of people that she was finding. But she found, okay, if I talk about like postpartum weight loss, even in its antithesis, I will still capture like this demographic of people who are searching for it before they have to go down this painful pipeline to
Yeah.
eventually find me, and some of whom may never get here. So how do I
Right.
say, I know you, this is the best tactic to lose weight post pregnancy. And then actually, when you start working with me, we start caring about getting strong, being healthy for our kids, and things that are different than weight loss. And like, that's what matters. So I think it's still kind of figuring out how to speak to your people in a way that isn't
Yeah.
clickbaity, but it also captures attention amongst a landscape of, clickbait content.
You're almost like catfishing them, but in a good way, right?
It's
Where
the
it's
best way.
like, yeah, because it's gonna lead to something good and sustainable. But yeah, I've seen some pretty interesting ones where like they'll have like a clip of just some ridiculous something, right? And then it like immediately cuts to like the stitch of what they're actually talking about. And you're
Yeah.
like, all right, well, you kind of got my attention in that first 2, 3 seconds. And so now
And you
I
have to
don't know,
be
might as well.
careful too, because you also don't want to, cannibalize other people's content to like
Yeah,
grow your own. So there is definitely social media, there's definitely like boundaries you want to set for yourself.
yeah,
But the cool thing is, I think people, like you said at the beginning, are genuinely interested in their fitness and health. And so, how do we position this data that is so dense and boring and unsexy in a way that is interesting to people? And I find sometimes realizing it in like cultural moments can be very helpful. Hey, you saw, like this is this is how, Tia Toomey did. Well, that might be a bad example, but like, this is how this person achieved it. Did you see this? Like, here's some
yeah.
of the methodology and framework behind how they got here. And all of a sudden we're bought in because it tapped into a cultural moment that we're interested in.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and that's I mean that's definitely something on my own end, right? It's been like a challenge. It's like, all right, how do you capture attention, right? And like that's what everything's about right now. Like I think attention is the most sought after commodity, right now by businesses, whether it's fitness or not. And it's like that's like the most valuable thing in the world.
It
Almost. It's
is.
weird.
And it's very easy, especially working in branding and marketing. I get very nihilistic about it because
For sure.
can be depressing, but the positive thing is, of all times in history, now there is the potential to capture millions of views just from putting something out yourself, which
Yeah.
historically has never been the case. And so, people with actual knowledge and quality story can capture some attention. And so I try to
Hmm.
look at the bright side of that and say,
Yeah.
hey, there is good information out there about fitness and people want
Yes.
to hear it, which is an exciting, part of history to be in. And of course, it comes
Yeah.
with all of its downsides, but
Right. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Oh, I know we kind of got off on a little I told you I'm like a BB in a shoebox sometimes, right? So I can
I
like
am too.
take
So
us.
you're in good company.
So with these kind of weird talked about it before, like the competitions, like we had the competition in like fall or whatever to try to keep people accountable and have them something to shoot for. What's your take on like the all the different kind of competitions now within fitness, right? Because it used to be it was like the games, right? That was it. It was like okay, the
Yes.
open and then the games and then but now there's so much more. We talked about High Rocks a little bit. A lot of people don't know about World Fitness Project, which I've been following a ton, very, very closely lately. I'm
This
super
project.
excited about.
Me too.
Right. So like what's I guess kind of like your take on that and like from like your lens and your perspective.
Yeah, I think the rise of like other fitness competitions really like hitting the cultural like zeitgeist so heavily is a lot due in part to like kind of that wellness tourism piece that we talked about. Like we want community, we also want to challenge ourselves, and being able to go to New York City and participate in a High Rocks event is so appealing to a mass amount of people. And I think High Rocks is interesting because it is so less technically, you don't have to be as technically proficient at certain movements, and anyone can do it. That you see the elites in quotations, and then you also see just your friend down the street. Like, and you can sign up as a team. And I think that's the
Hmm.
interesting part about the High Rocks competition and why it's really boomed is you can join in these team ways that I think traditional like CrossFit competitions, like even regional competitions, has lent themselves to, but they still carry this, okay, we're doing like, overhead, like, squats and things that might just the
Handstand
lay
walks.
person couldn't necessarily train for in 6 months.
Right.
And so I think that's the interesting thing about High Rocks. And I've been, as kind of the CrossFit Games has faced a lot of criticism and
Yeah.
as it's needed to have, I think
Yeah.
it's been interesting seeing the CrossFit community's response to that through things like World Fitness Project,
Hmm.
which I'm excited. I think I shared this with you on Instagram, but
Instagram.
they're now opening up like rec leagues. Like you can come,
Yes.
just like you would join a High Rocks, you can come join World Fitness Project. And I think that was the beauty of why CrossFit and the games really excelled, is because you're doing the same workouts that these elite, the Matt Frasers, the Noah Olsons are also doing. And so it's really cool. It's like what everyone says about the Olympics. Like, I wish I could see a normal person try to do this before I saw the
Yeah.
elite person. And if you go to like Wadapalooza, you watch that exact same thing happen all the way
Yeah.
up. And I think I'm excited to see World Fitness Project has brought in, like, strategically, they have a community lead. They have people who are trying to foster like a portion of that I feel like maybe the CrossFit HQ has kind of let slip a little bit as the brand has grown.
Yeah, I have definitely seen watching World Fitness Project, and I'm all for it, right? But like it's very strategic in the sense of like, here is a gap with CrossFit HQ and CrossFit in general. We're gonna fill that gap and make it better, right? And they're just going like, they're like, okay, they dropped the ball here. We're gonna do that
We're
too.
going to do this.
Like it's been like you'll see that I've just been watching it over the months, and I'm like, damn, they're like, it's almost like they're coming for CrossFit in a way, right?
I think it's done with love. I think it's done out
I
of
do
an
too.
intense love for the industry. Like I have been critical of CrossFit as a brand, but because I love it so much and the mode of fitness, and it's like the thing that you love, you want to see get better. And I think
Yeah.
that's where World Fitness Project is coming in and saying, hey, maybe this isn't going to take over the game. Maybe it's going to be like I've heard, I think it was the podcast Talking Elite Fitness, but they
Hmm.
compared World Fitness Project to like live golf compared to the PGA, and like how
Oh
eventually
yeah.
the PGA was like, oh, whatever. And then they saw the
Yeah.
popularity of live golf and they were like, you know what? We're going to bring you in. Like, you are now affiliated with us. And that would be an
Yep.
interesting move to see, you know,
That would be
who buys CrossFit and like if they swallow it up, or if kind of how that, or if World Fitness Project will surpass it or just become,
right.
hey, this is another great outlet and another
Right.
competition that CrossFit athletes can participate in alongside of or instead of the games.
Yep. Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see where it goes, especially with CrossFit being up for sale again. But I think depending, yeah, like you said, depending who buys it, I think a lot of the problems come from some of the leadership that's been there way too long, or that's been there, left, and then came back that maybe
Yes.
shouldn't have come back. Dave Castro, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I think if they can maybe somehow I think CrossFit can save itself still if they kind of like clean
Agree.
house, right, at that level, because the modality is good. The affiliates, like your local affiliate, isn't, it's very different, right? And like most, I would
Extraordinarily
assume,
so.
it's we tell people all the time, like you have conversations with members and stuff in here, and it's like, yeah, we got CrossFit in our name, but like, I don't agree with this, that, or the other that they're
Exactly.
doing. Like, so I don't know. It's gonna be super interesting. The rumor mill is flying about who's gonna buy CrossFit, right? I've heard
I've heard
everything from
everything.
Glassman to Froning to like all kind of
I've heard
people.
Froning mentioned a million times, and I don't personally
I don't see
see
it.
that
It
happening.
would be stupid. I think.
It would be,
I don't
yeah,
know.
it'd be
He's
ridiculous.
Mayhem's very successful. I don't think he needs to. I have heard though, and this I could see, I can't remember his name, but the owner of High Rocks has talked about
Interesting.
buying. So
Huh. I don't
that would
know
be
that I do have an opinion on that.
not, I don't, I guess it would be interesting, but why? Like,
Exactly. I don't know that I'd
yeah,
want to see it. I think I'd want to see
yeah.
someone in love with CrossFit
'Cause
as a sport, not trying to make it a
right, and
sales
then High
investment.
Rocks is its own thing, right? Like, and I think it's good that it's its own thing, completely separate, like kind of to what we were talking about earlier, So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see here in the next several
I've
months
had
of what happens.
I've had people in my DM saying that Adidas is going to try to buy CrossFit. And I said, I don't see that being a move for the brand at all. They are positioning themselves within functional fitness, but
Yeah,
for a sportswear brand to buy a sport, I don't see that actually happening.
no, no. And then even more interesting is, have you heard of Metfix?
Yes.
Yeah. And so like Glassman's like swooping back around with his own thing again too, right? And that Metfix is now, it's an affiliation model as well. And
Okay.
so
Interesting.
actually the last episode I recorded, he was one of the first 100 affiliates that went with Metfix.
Really?
Yeah. And so That's I don't know. So there's just so much interesting things I think to watch over the next several months of where this is all going with the kind of the sports side of the functional fitness arena.
The good thing is, I think there's so many people who are so deeply passionate about the sport of functional fitness that regardless of what happens with CrossFit as a brand, I think
Hmm.
functional fitness as we know, like classic CrossFit, will continue to thrive in some capacity, whether that's
Yeah,
World
and
Fitness Project or hopefully CrossFit.
yeah, and then even like smaller local, not so well known competitions that are still CrossFit, right? Where they're not part of the HQ, but it is CrossFit, right? So we were talking earlier before we started recording the fittest of the
Yeah,
coast competition, right?
fitness to the coast.
So in the here in the Carolinas, I think this last year was its third year, and I cannot remember the guy's name for the life of me. But that's like exploded over the last 3 years, where and the whole point is again it's the cutoff for it is everyone who basically that didn't make regionals or semifinals, whatever they're calling it now, and below, right? And so you have some pretty good athletes, but they're still it's like attainable kind of, and you're like, oh, so a buddy of ours who owns a Greater Culture CrossFit actually in Apex, or I'm sorry, Holly Springs, he did in it this year, right? And
That's
that's
so
like my
fun.
buddy. Like
Yeah.
I was like, Brad made it to the fittest of the coast this year, right? Like, and he's an incredible athlete, though. I'm not taking that away from him. And he like crushed the Open and the Masters and all that. But like, it's still he's got his gym and he's got another day job too outside of that, right? And like he's in there like just competing at this like pretty cool competition now. And there's a bunch of those like above local comps, like just at your affiliate, but like not HQ sponsored high level
Yes.
pros comps either, right? And so I think that'll help keep the sport and everything alive as well, completely independent of CrossFit HQ. So, which is good.
I agree. And I think with the rise in popularity of High Rocks, we've seen people want this. And so
Hmm.
it's about positioning it. Okay, if it's through the CrossFit name, fantastic. And if it's outside of it, now we can attract like a larger swath of people who might not, have participated in it because they were intimidated by CrossFit. Maybe this is,
Right.
an entry point into the like functional fitness, through something that's a little more glamorized, like a competition. I think
Yeah.
people really love that.
Yeah. And the High Rocks is, have you been to a High Rocks event?
I haven't. I was supposed to go to the High Rocks in Atlanta. I had a friend who was competing and I was
Hmm.
going to be there to support her and I couldn't make it work. But it's interesting the way that they're structured, and this is kind of inside baseball, but because of Puma sponsorship, like brands that get to like show up, kind of like if you go to a marathon and there's vendor village,
Yeah.
like there's a lot of limitations put around who can show up and like what brands can participate at like these High Rocks events because Puma said,
Okay.
"Oop, if you're any kind of competitor, you can't come in the door." So you see, like I've seen some interesting because CrossFit is still relatively untapped by brands, unlike like
Hmm.
marathons or Ironman events. There will be like Gymshark put up a pop up like right across the street. So like, okay, we can't be inside the building, or
Okay.
LSKD, the Australian brand, put up a
Hmm.
hey, come get ready with us before like we will like help you fix up your hair. We've got hyper ice, we've got everything to help you get ready before you head out to do high rocks, like down the street.
That's
So
cool. Okay.
it's kind of been this like more disruptive fitness brands have kind of shown up at High Rocks,
Yeah.
which has been fun to watch. But the format is really interesting to me with the like
Yeah.
1K runs throughout and the way that they've broken up the grid.
Yeah, and I've heard just from and I haven't been to one yet either, but from a spectator's perspective, it's like, it's really, what the people I've talked to are like, it's really fucking cool. Like,
Yeah.
it's like a whole thing. And like, yeah, okay, it's cool. I'm watching my friend compete, but like, there's all this stuff too, and like this, that, and the other. And so it sounds like they've done a really, again, kind of sort of the theme of this, but like the community aspect and making it like not just about the athletes, but like everyone there and like,
Yes.
so I'm excited. I want to go to one. I'll probably compete in one when if I ever have time to do something like that again.
And I think that's the key too for like some of these like even regional or like local competitions to kind of position themselves as like think beyond the sport itself and the athletes and think about like what that experience that you're creating is like and how can you draw people into an experience. Make it, all the sports that we love are suited for spectators along with like the athlete. Like you have to have both. And so I
Yeah.
think that's an interesting thing to kind of play with as some of these competitions are trying to gain traction.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's exciting. I don't know, it's like just generally an exciting time to be in the fitness industry right now.
Yes.
Like, to just see all the cool stuff, right? Awesome. Well, I got to start getting ready for the 4:30 class, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to ask or add or anything? It's been awesome chatting.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This has been tons of fun. I think that the main takeaway here is just service over the bottom
Hmm.
line, like service
Yeah,
leading the way in business and seeking community. And like for the gym goers listening, not the gym owners, I think prioritizing community and seeking it, like even despite the friction, like remembering that community is found within the friction. Like it is a lot of work to get up and go to a class, but the payoff is so worth it versus us
yeah,
being isolated in our homes. And that's something I'm personally working on and
yeah.
striving to get better at.
Well, come on. I mean, hey, you know where to come. You're right down the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And I think, I don't know, maybe if we can like lead the way with that like service first mentality, maybe that'll bleed over into like other industries and just people in general in life, right? With one another. I think we need more of that in general. Well, awesome. Thank you again so much for coming on. This was super fun. It was kind of like really unstructured because I think we're both the same scatterbrain type
I think
person,
so
which I
too.
love.
Props to whoever's
It's
listened this far.
yeah, I know, seriously, yeah. Yeah, the last episode I had, like, I was, like, very sure. I was like, "Okay, cool, like, he's keeping me on
Classic.
track." Awesome. All right, well, thank you, Tatum, and what the your company, really quick, just to give you a plug, what's the name of your company again?
Yeah, it's Brandt, Brandt
Mhm.
Creative. And you can find us at brandtcreative.co. And then I'm online at Tatum Brandt, just everywhere
Nice.
that, social platforms exist. So
Awesome, and I'll put all that in the show notes for anyone, especially if there are any gym owners that are listening. Awesome.
thanks for having me, Mike.
Absolutely.